Hey, it's Drybear. And today we're gonna get caught up on the Ubisoft drama revolving the brand new entry in the Assassin's Creed series, Assassin's Creed Shadows. There's a couple things to go over with Assassin's Creed Shadows. I think at least over the last couple years, Assassin's Creed has been getting a lot of mixed reviews. I think Ubisoft has maybe overgrown a little bit in their staffing and how they handle their games. A lot of it has been built up on some negative PR around how they price things. So there's two different angles we have to look at here for Assassin's Creed Shadow. The first one is about the game content itself, the story choice, how we're finally getting a historically accurate character represented as a playable character in the game and the reactions to that, but also because there's some pricing situations that go on. So the simpler one is the pricing. So let's go over that first. So these are the three options that you get with the game right now. So you have basically these three as options, and then you can obviously do the fourth option, which is getting the subscription for the game. But this one is kind of interesting because your standard game is going to be base game plus your pre-order bonus, and your pre-order bonus is just going to be an extra quest. I don't know why we're doing this now as a gaming like developer community, the extra quest. This has been good in some games. There's a couple games I can think of that have had a pretty nice extra quest to include, but in general, they've all been pretty meh because they don't really want to put a lot of effort into content that not everyone can see, kind of thing. And also, when you're thinking about this from a buyer's perspective, it's really hard to know what the value of this is, right? This could be a 5-minute quest that you get in a secondary town with NPCs that were AI generated and AI voiced, right? Like, you don't really know how good this is versus like side quests in like Cyberpunk Phantom Liberty. Some of those quests you probably would think about paying for because they're so incredibly cool, right? So there's definitely degrees of value of that, but giving me the name of the quest doesn't really tell me anything here. And this is the only pre-order bonus you get for buying the game early, which is really, really weird. You can then, and that's 70 US dollars. Then you can upgrade from 70 to 110. This is a massive jump in price. So this, usually when we see these jumps, it's like $10 to $20 between gaps. So going from the first edition to the second edition being $40 more is actually criminal. This is insanely expensive. So $40 up from the standard edition is the gold edition. You get the season pass, which they say is going to include a day one additional unlockable character content, and you get a season pass bonus for the next upcoming 2 expansions. So what's tough about season passes, if you buy a season pass before a game is out, is you don't know if you like the game yet, and you don't know if you're going to be playing the expansions yet. So it's kind of like it's more of an insurance policy that you're buying for them to kind of pad their launch numbers. And then you also get 3 days early access. 3 days early access, I'm on the fence about this one. I know there's a lot of people that think that single player games shouldn't have early access since you can't really like log in and do anything. Like, you're just playing a single player game. It also means that spoilers are going to start showing up on social media for the people that didn't pre-order the game or didn't buy the higher access levels. Plus, I don't think $40 is worth early access for a single player game. If you're talking about an MMO or something that's like grindy and competitive, having that competitive edge can be valuable. But in this case, $40 for early access is insanely steep for that. Then you can go from 110 to 130 for the Ultimate Edition. The Ultimate Edition is $130, and the only difference there is going to be this Ultimate Pack, which is a character pack, which is gear and weapon for both of the main characters in the game. You get a beast and you get a dragon tooth trinket. You also get a hideout pack, which sounds like it's going to be more like a PoE or like Last Epoch thing, a little hangout spot for you and your characters. You get 5 skill points, which again, we don't know how much this is without knowing the skill tree, right? Like 5 skill points in a big skill tree could be not very much, or it could be a lot. And then the red dragon mode filter for photo mode is the other option there. And this is their promotional image, which shows the same thing we just talked about, but also shows the items that you can get. And the armor does look cool for Yasuke and Naoe. And then you've got the extra little bits you'll get for character items. And then you get this monster, this mount. I guess this is a mount. I'm not really sure exactly what this is, plus 5 skill points. So $130 for only in-game items. To me, this isn't really, I mean, first of all, right, after having been a developer myself, I can tell you we're definitely heading towards a future where games are going to continue to get more expensive because they're more expensive to make, but their price hasn't increased too much over time, right? So like there needs to be new value. At least over the last 5 years, developers have been making that up with microtransactions, but some developers that don't want to do microtransactions, or they suck at doing microtransactions, which doing microtransactions properly that doesn't hurt your player base and nets you extra revenue is a skill set that not every studio currently has. So that doesn't always work for everybody. It can end up killing a game, or it can end up being very low value for them. But this one's kind of strange, right? Because, you know, even not that long ago, like right behind me, I have my deluxe edition, collector's edition of Dark Souls 3 statue. Historically, most games, if you paid $130+ for a collector's edition or an ultimate edition for a game, you would get like a 10 to 14 inch figure along with it. You would get like a game map printed on cloth, like linen or something. You would get like the soundtrack, the official soundtrack on a burned CD that you can listen to anywhere you want. If you still have like a Walkman or something, or you have like in your car or something like that, and then you would get a bunch of extra goodies and things like that. So for the standard edition to be $70, the next edition up from standard to be $110, that only includes a season pass and early access to a single player game, and then the $130 edition to only be in-game cosmetics and skill points for the game itself is actually pretty horrible. Now, again, you know, buyer beware, consumer conscience. If it doesn't fit your price, then don't buy it, kind of thing. I think $70 for the game, if they deliver it well, is fine. But these editions, to me, not only feel a little scummy, they also feel very lazy. I feel like this is not a very difficult package for the development team or the marketing team to come up with. Like, this doesn't take a lot of effort or time to put together. Obviously, these items in game need to be, you know, sketched and modeled and animated and hooked up in game and then QA tested and all that. But I mean, for something that's $40 more than the base, or $60 more, like $60 more for this, if you're gonna charge the consumer $60 for something, I feel like they deserve a lot more than just this. So that concludes the first part of it, which is the pricing fiasco, and you can comment below what you think about that idea. But the second content is around the fact that Yasuke, one of the main characters, is the first character supposedly of the Assassin's Creed series that is actually based on a real person. Yasuke did exist. He was a real person that came to Japan in the Edo era and was part of that history. Now, the documents around his history, everything that he went and did, are a little sparse. There are clear representations of him showing up and being there for a couple years, and then a couple interactions he's had, as well as some relations to Oda Nobunaga. But as far as exactly what he did and exactly where he went, it's a little bit sparse. So it's not like they're representing a person that is well known and well documented, but it is a person that has been documented to exist and is a part of Japan's history. And you can look him up. The different representations of him and his character are going to be different depending on where you go. But in general, it is documented that he did show up around 1579 with an Italian missionary, an emissary that came to Japan. And when he was presented to Nobunaga at the time, Nobunaga loved him. He loved his physical build. He loved how different he looked from the natives that were there at the time. And he immediately made him a retainer of his family, and also did enlist him in the army. And he was kind of mentioned as being easily stronger than many people there at the time. Like, his muscle build was absolutely ridiculous. He's even supposedly to have been there when Nobunaga unalived himself as well, and was relied on in many cases. He was even allowed to eat with the Lord during dinner time, which is not something that happened to a retainer or anyone of that status or below. But I think the most clear complaint on this topic is the idea that the franchise of Assassin's Creed historically has been loosely based on history and real world references, but has not really been a direct reference before. And the fact that this is the first one in the series that is a direct reference to a person that existed, though it's not a person that was well documented, is something that people are starting to get upset about. Now, you still have people that say, I at first was questing this when it first revealed, wild, but when I found out that it's based off a real historical person, I'm all for it and think that it's awesome. I think that the vocal minority or the vocal majority or the quiet majority here is probably going to be the one that wins out most. I think ultimately the best thing that Ubisoft can do with this game is just make it a good game. Like, the controversy aside, the pricing aside, if you pay for the base game $70 and you get a good experience out of it and it's replayable and it functions on release and it doesn't have FPS issues and crashes and all kinds of weird glitches that requires many updates to fix, I think that none of this will really matter at the end. I think it is an interesting topic to think about the decision making behind this, because I think there actually is grounds to say that this choice was made, at least in some part for the decision, was made knowing that there would be some controversy here. And I think there's actually a lot of great examples of situations where the controversy ended up resulting in a vast increase in sales and product awareness and brand equity for the title that wouldn't have existed if there was no controversy. A great example of this is Hogwarts Legacy, which was actually in itself a great game. I had a good time with Hogwarts Legacy. I think it was very enjoyable. It was a very fun game to play. There is grounds to say that it was vastly increased in sales and popularity because of the controversy that surrounded it. On launch, the controversy around J.K. Rowling and the fact that she was very openly political, especially against people of the LGBTQ alliance group, like that whole conversation ended up creating a lot of buzz around this game, whether you were for it or against it. Even the fact that people were going around telling people that they weren't allowed to play this game because the person that was benefiting from it was getting a bunch of money from it. And we don't even need to get into the details of that. I think that just that very argument, that content for the game, ended up boosting the sales and awareness for this game far more than it would have if the game didn't have that kind of controversy. The most recent example is Stellar Blade, which was very much in the spotlight for a long time. In fact, it got some of the biggest drama-related news and coverage out of any game we've seen so far in 2024, more around the idea that people were saying that it was overly sexualized, overly feminized, that it takes advantage of the female body. A lot of the characters are very conventionally attractive, and the game itself was kind of going back and forth from that. And I do believe that the controversy surrounding Stellar Blade made it a lot more popular and a lot more interesting to people that may not have played it in the first place. I mean, if it was just a very generic character without any controversy or buzz or political charge around it, you probably would have a lot of people that never would have known it existed, never would have known that it released, and never would have engaged with it at all. We're seeing a bunch of this happen in like Netflix remakes, like The Little Mermaid, and tons of redos of old cartoons that we all know and love. And I do think that the fact that there is outrage every time this happens, but it keeps happening, should tell people that there is some value in doing it, right? They're not just doing it to hurt their own promotion. And especially in a day and age when there are so many products and media and things to interact with, games coming out, movies, shows. We're also in an era right now where remakes and redos and remasters are the main lifeblood for people. People would rather buy a remake of a game that they know they already like rather than invest in a new IP they've never heard of. And so we're kind of at that point where it's hard to reach the ears of people. And so using controversy and charged conversations as a vessel to get people's attention is becoming more and more mainstay. And I do believe that at least in some non-0% part of their marketing strategy for this game, that was a big conversation for them, though they'll probably never admit to it when it comes to Assassin's Creed Shadows. So what do you think? Pricing structure for Assassin's Creed Shadows, is it something that is reasonable, at least for the game that's coming out and the content you get for it? And what do you think about the main character choice for Assassin's Creed and the fallout that has come from it? If you found value in today's video, leave a like down below, leave a comment for the algorithm to help this video get seen by more people, and don't forget to check out my other channels for other content and other stuff and other things.